Have you ever wondered why saying no feels so much harder than it should? It may not be about boundaries at all. It may be about what your mind believes saying no means about you. Welcome to Breakthrough Weekly, where we explore the subconscious patterns shaping the way we think, feel, and respond to life. I'm Monica Pelayo, certified in hypnosis and rapid transformational therapy, or RTT. Each week, I share personal experiences, client insights, and practical ways to help you better understand yourself so you can begin creating lasting change. Today's article is called The Hidden Cost of Being Everyone's Go To Person. Being dependable is often seen as a strength, but what happens when helping stops being a choice and starts feeling like an obligation? If you've ever struggled to say no, felt responsible for everyone else's problem, or found yourself exhausted from constantly putting others first, today's episode may help you understand why. Let's begin. Are you the person everyone calls when something needs to be handled? Do you step in when no one else volunteers? Do you say yes before checking whether you have the time or energy? Do you feel responsible because you're usually the one who knows what to do? Do you feel guilty saying no, then resentful after agreeing? If this sounds familiar, I understand it because I lived it, and now I help others uncover what is driving the same pattern. You know you need stronger boundaries, but that is not the real issue. The real question is why saying no feels so difficult. For most of my life, being the go to person felt like a compliment. It meant people trusted me and saw me as capable, dependable, and able to figure things out when others could not. That identity helped me build trust, create opportunities, and succeed through my 21 years at Intel, where it was repeatedly recognized as one of my greatest strengths. Over time, I recognized that not every yes was a conscious decision. Sometimes I was responding from habit, guilt, responsibility, or an identity I had carried for long that I had felt like who I was. Understanding that has been central to the personal work I have done over the past several years and to the work I now do as a certified hypnotherapist. I help capable, responsible adults whom others rely on at work or at home look beneath people pleasing, overcommitting, and difficulty maintaining boundaries so they could understand what is driving the pattern. To understand my own pattern and help others examine theirs, I had to look at where it began. When I first began tracing this pattern, I thought it started during my preteen years in Mexico. Then I remembered that I had been stepping into a protective role much earlier. My older brother learned to speak later, and even though I was younger, I was already speaking up for him. When my grandmother made handmade tortillas, I would ask her to make one with cheese for him because he could not speak yet for himself. My mother told that story often, always with pride. I still feel proud when I remember it. And I could see how that behavior was encouraged and reinforced. I was learning that noticing what someone else needed, speaking for them, and making sure they were taken care of was something that earned approval. That small childhood memory reflects a role I continued carrying throughout my life. I learned very early to observe the people around me, recognize what they might need, and step in before they had to ask. What began as love and protectiveness also contributed to an early association between helping and feeling valuable. Between the ages of 12 and 14, while living in Mexico, helping became a regular part of my responsibilities. My mother was my grandmother's caregiver, and I was expected to step in by running errands and helping with chores around her home, especially after she injured her back and her mobility became limited. I occasionally helped one aunt by running errands when she needed support. I also sometimes helped another aunt's small grocery store when I happened to be there and she needed an extra hand. I assisted customers, measured and weighed items, and handed their purchases at the register. My parents had a sugarcane farm, and I sometimes helped my father when he grew other crops. There were also times when my parents required me to go door to door selling what had been harvested. I found it deeply embarrassing and hated doing it. But when my parents told me to do something, refusing was not an option. Helping was woven into my daily life and my role within the family. Those experiences taught me responsibility, resourcefulness, discipline, and how to care for others while also training me to notice what needed to be done and step in before someone asked. Over time, that response became automatic. I became deeply attuned to the people around me, and because I saw myself as empathetic, I rarely questioned the impulse to help. I assumed that noticing someone's need meant I should respond to it. That instinct became one of my greatest professional strengths. But empathy and responsibility are not the same thing. Caring about someone's situation does not automatically make it mine to solve. By the time I was 18, I was already carrying responsibilities that extended far beyond my age and often included managing the needs and expectations of the ex husband's family. During my marriage, the ex husband extended family regularly expected me to be the one who helped whenever his mother, sisters, or brothers needed something. Sometimes I was asked in front of everyone, which immediately put me on the spot and made me saying no feel much harder because everyone was watching and reacting. There were times when I was overwhelmed, tired, or already busy, and I did not want to keep deprioritizing my own needs and responsibilities to take care of something for someone else. Yet, I continued saying yes. When I tried to refuse, the ex husband would make me feel as though I was the only person who could help. If I did not step in, they might not get what they needed, and somehow that would become my fault. Many times I agreed not because I wanted to, but because I felt responsible for what might happen if I did not. I became angry and resentful. I often complained to the ex husband that I was always the one being asked while other family members were not expected to step in. I felt like I was a doormat and everyone could just walk all over me however they pleased. That was how powerless I genuinely felt at that time. But the truth was more complicated. I had not yet learned how to say no, maintain a boundary, and stay grounded when someone pressured me. I felt as though I had no choice, even while repeatedly giving my choice away. People benefited from my inability to say no, but I also taught them that with enough pressure, I would eventually give in. That became my responsibility to recognize because I had not yet learned how to respond differently. The pattern was already established before I had entered the workplace, then Intel gave it a professional purpose. I'd started at Intel as a contract employee, first through a third party agency for 12 months, and then directly through Intel for 6 months. At the time, contract roles were limited to 18 months, so I knew people needed to see my value if I wanted to be hired directly. I was encouraged to reach out to other administrative professionals and offer support, so I made myself available, volunteered, and helped wherever I could. When a request went out to a group and no one else stepped forward, I often volunteered because I found it difficult to stay silent when I knew I could help. Every problem I solved became another opportunity to demonstrate that I belonged there and could contribute at a higher level, and it worked. I was eventually hired directly as a Blue Badge employee. That experience reinforced something I had learned much earlier in life. The more I helped, the more valuable I became. I saw it as ambition, dedication, and a strong work ethic. And it was all of those things, but it was also strengthened my habit of taking on more before checking whether I had the capacity. I did not become the go to person by accident. I worked hard to become that person, and I took pride in it. In one of my performance reviews, I was specifically identified as the go to person for questions and guidance. I was also recognized for being flexible, supporting others, mentoring administrative professionals, sharing my experience, and making time to help even when I was already extremely busy. That recognition mattered because it confirmed that I was trusted, capable, and valuable. Being dependable generally contributed to my professional success. I supported executives through rapidly changing priorities, complicated travel, meetings across different countries and time zones, last minute events, and situations that required someone to remain calm and find a solution quickly. My ability to notice what others needed before they asked made me highly effective in executive support. I could anticipate problems, identify gaps, and take action before an issue became urgent. That same instinct that had made me protective of my brother, attentive of my grandmother, and useful for my family became one of the strongest qualities I brought into my career. Several of the executives I supported also encouraged me to learn how to say no because they could see that I was willing to take on almost anything and did not always protect my own capacity. In the CEO office, the expectations were different. Part of my role was to support the CEO office and assist executive leadership team administrative professionals when they needed coverage or support. In that environment, helping was part of the job I had accepted. At work, saying yes felt different because I was consistently rewarded. Taking on more brought recognition, trust, and opportunities, which reinforced the value of being the person everyone could count on. Even when I overcommitted or became overwhelmed, the praise made the pattern feel worthwhile. The pattern was professionally rewarded so consistently that I had little reason to question it until the cost became harder to ignore. At first, helping is something you choose to do. People appreciate it, praise your dependability, and tell you they do not know what they would do without you. That recognition becomes especially meaningful when being useful is already connected to being feeling valued. Over time, helping shifts from something you do into a role you believe you are responsible for maintaining. You become known as the dependable one, the strong one, the person who steps in, and the person who always figured things out. Eventually, other people expect you to keep fulfilling that role, and you begin expecting it from yourself. You stop asking whether you genuinely want to help, whether you have the capacity, or whether the responsibility belongs to you because saying yes feels consistent with who you believe you are. Helping is no longer only a behavior, it becomes part of your self concept. Saying no then stops feeling like a simple decline in your mind. It begins to mean that you are selfish, unreliable, or no longer the person you believe yourself to be. This is how identity keeps the pattern in place. You're no longer only responding to a request, you are protecting the world through which you have learned to understand your value. Most people who chronically overextend themselves already understand that they need boundaries. They know they are exhausted, recognize that a request is unreasonable, and may even know exactly what they want to say, Yet when the moment comes, guilt, fear, or responsibility becomes stronger than the logical understanding. This is how the pattern is often described. But if I do not help, how are they going to manage on their own? I feel responsible because I'm usually the one who knows what to do and can figure it out. And what will they think of me if I say no? Being more experienced, knowledgeable, or capable can create the impression that stepping in is a responsibility rather than a choice. But knowing how to solve a problem does not automatically make that problem yours. You protect everyone else's time while allowing your own to be interrupted. Postpone your needs to make sure others are taken care of, and assume responsibility for outcomes that were never yours to manage. Then resentment appears. You may feel angry that people keep asking so much of you while also recognizing that you continue saying yes. You may feel taken for granted while realizing that you have not clearly communicated or maintained your limits. People admire your strength and dependability because they benefit from how much you carry. That praise can make it harder to recognize that caring so much is also what leaves you overwhelmed, depleted, and resentful. That is where accountability becomes necessary. It was not wrong for me to be dependable, care about people, or take part in being helpful, but it became my responsibility to recognize when helping was a conscious choice and when I was protecting an identity I had carried for years. Many people know what they want to change, but do not understand why they continue repeating the same response. An old belief, coping strategy, or identity is still shaping what feels safe, possible, deserved, or consistent with who they believe they are. An underlying belief has been running that automatic response for years. For many people, it sounds like this: if I am needed, I am worthy. If people rely on me, I matter. For others, that specific belief is different, which is why identifying what drives the response requires looking beneath the visible behavior. For one person, helping is a way to gain approval, acceptance, or belonging. For someone else, it is tied to responsibility, fear of criticism, or rejection, or the belief that being more capable makes them responsible for everyone else's outcome. For some people, the behavior began as a coping strategy or a way to meet an emotional need. Being helpful brought attention, prevented conflict, and maintained connection, created safety, or reinforced an identity as the responsible one. When an underlying belief is driving the response, overhelping does not register as overextending. It registers as being responsible, loyal, capable, or good. That is why telling someone to just say no does not change the pattern. The visible behavior may be people pleasing, overcommitting, automatically volunteering, or repeatedly offending as a boundary. But the behavior is not the full problem. The more important question is, what does your mind believe will happen if you stop? The answer may sound like, if I do not help, I am selfish. If they struggle, it is my fault. If someone else is disappointed in me, I have done something wrong. I am no longer needed. I may no longer matter. The exact belief differs from person to person, which is why self awareness is essential. Until you understand what your mind has attached to saying yes or saying no, you may continue reacting automatically while believing you are making conscious choice. The breakthrough is not becoming less dependable, it is understanding why helping has become so automatic and learning to move from an automatic response to a conscious decision. For years, I focused primarily on the behavior. I needed to stop overextending, stop automatically saying yes, and become more comfortable maintaining boundaries. Shifting the pattern became easier when I began understanding what was driving it. Helping had become connected to approval, responsibility, and value. At times, being needed reinforced the belief that I was worthy and that I mattered. Once I could recognize that association, I could begin asking whether I genuinely wanted to help or whether an older pattern was making the decision for me. I made progress on this pattern years ago, but it was not until I became certified in hypnotherapy and gained tools to work with beliefs and emotional associations beneath the behavior that saying no became easier. I now regularly see versions of this pattern in the people I work with. Some learned that being helpful brought approval or acceptance. Others became responsible for everyone around them and became to believe that another person's disappointment meant they had done something wrong. The behavior looks familiar on the surface, but what is driving it is different for each person. It may be an underlying belief, a coping strategy, an emotional association, or an identity connected to being helpful. People often know they are people pleasing, overcommitting, or struggling to say no, but do not understand why another person's request creates so much guilt, why disappointment feels so difficult to tolerate, or why they continue abandoning their own needs even when they know the pattern is affecting them. Many people have been told to set boundaries, but they have not been given the tools to understand the belief, coping strategy, or identity that makes those boundaries so difficult to maintain. In the work I do as a certified hypnotherapist, I use hypnosis and RTT, rapid transformational therapy, to help people look beneath the visible behavior and identity, the experiences, meanings, beliefs, and identity associations their mind has connected to helping approval, rejection, responsibility, and worth. RTT combines hypnosis with cognitive and behavioral techniques to support change at both the belief and behavioral levels. Because the underlying reason differs from person to person, the goal is not to impose one explanation on everyone. It is to help the person understand what is driving their specific response and begin changing the pattern from the deeper level. Self awareness creates the pause that automatic behavior does not. When someone makes a request, the person can begin asking, do I genuinely want to do this? Does it align with what matters to me? Do I have time, energy, bandwidth, and capacity? If the answer is yes, then you can choose to help. If the answer is no, they can decline. There will be moments when they want to say no and notice that they cannot bring themselves to do it. That resistance is not evidence that they should say yes, it is information in that moment. They can ask, what part of me does not feel safe or comfortable saying no? The answer may be a fear of being judged, rejected, criticized, or seen as selfish. From there, they can continue examining the meaning they have attached to that reaction. For example, if they judge me, what am I making that mean about me? The answer may be, it means I am mean. Then the belief can be questioned. Is that actually true? Does declining a request because I do not have the capacity, do not want it on, or recognize that it's not my responsibility automatically make me mean? When the answer is no, the person has an opportunity to respond from discernment rather than from old belief. Identify the underlying patterns does not mean every boundary immediately feels comfortable. Resistance may still appear while someone begins implementing new behaviors and practicing a different response. The shift is learning to treat that resistance as information rather than instruction. Over time, the person becomes better able to pause before answering, check their own capacity, notice that emotions are appearing without allowing those emotions to make the decision. They can say, "Let me think about it," without immediately explaining or apologizing. They can allow someone else to solve their own problem and maintain a boundary even when another person is disappointed. They answer the phone because they choose to, not because guilt answered for them. Each time they respond differently, they gather new evidence that saying no does not automatically make them selfish, uncaring, unsafe, or unworthy. With consistent practice, the new response becomes more familiar and saying no begins to feel more natural. The work is not about removing generosity, loyalty, or dependability. It is about keeping those strengths without automatically sacrificing yourself to prove your value, maintain approval, or avoid discomfort. When the underlying belief is addressed and the new behavior is practiced consistently, helping becomes a conscious decision rather than an automatic obligation. Think about the last time you wanted to say no but agreed anyway. What did you believe might happen if you declined? What did you fear their reaction would mean about you? And in that moment, were you making a conscious choice or protecting an identity that has taught you to be the one who always steps in? These questions are an opportunity to identify what is making that decision before you answer the next request. These questions are an opportunity to identify what is making that decision before you answer the next request. I do not regret being dependable, caring for people, supporting my teams, helping my family, or becoming someone others could trust. Those qualities are part of who I am, and they contributed significantly to the life and career I built. What I had to understand was that my ability to help was one of my strengths, but it was never the source of my worth. I could notice that someone needed support without automatically making that need my responsibility. I could allow another person to be disappointed without interpreting their reaction as proof that I had done something wrong. I could help because I genuinely chose to, rather than because guilt, fear, responsibility, or the need to feel valuable had made the decision for me. Helping was one of the ways I learned to prove that I mattered, but I mattered before I helped anyone. You can be someone people count on without believing your value depends on how much you carry for them, and you can remain dependable without forgetting to count yourself in. You may already recognize the pattern. What you may not understand yet is why you continue responding this way, even when you consciously want to change. During an exploratory call, you can share the concerns you are experiencing, the pattern you want to change, and the outcome you would like to create. We can discuss how I can work and determine whether hypnosis and RTT are the right fit for you. If we decide to work together, the RTT session is where we explore the beliefs, behaviors, emotional associations, and past experiences connected to the pattern. From there, we begin reprogramming and updating the belief system so it aligns with your current reality and the outcome you want to create. Through this work, you can become more aware of what is driving your automatic responses, pause before agreeing, communicate your limits more clearly, and make decisions based on your capacity rather than guilt, feel, or responsibility. Would you like to discuss the pattern you want to change and determine whether this work is the right fit for you? Schedule your exploratory call at www.thethrivingpathways.com/appointment. P.S. If you are unsure whether hypnosis and RTT are the right fit for you, the exploratory call gives us an opportunity to discuss your concerns, the outcome you want, and how I work. If something in today's episode felt familiar, don't ignore it. Awareness is often the first step toward understanding why a pattern has continued for so long. If you'd like to explore the beliefs, emotional associations, or subconscious patterns driving the challenges your experiences, I invite you to schedule an exploratory call. During the call, we'll discuss what you're experiencing, the outcome you like to create, and determine whether hypnosis and RTT are the right fit for you. You'll find that schedule link in the episode description. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you found this episode valuable, please consider following Breakthrough Weekly and sharing it with someone you may feel that would benefit from it as well. Thank you for joining me. This is Monica Pelayo. Until next time, take care of yourself.